Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ask Jameen. I'm Nicci Willis, and
I'm Jameen.
And today we are going to talk specifically about inventory. The housing market still has relatively low inventory, and we've got a ton of things to talk about. So we're just gonna jump right into it. Okay, here we go. So before we get started, I want to remind you to make sure you subscribe, hit that button down there below, and hit the bell so that you are notified every time we upload new content. Also, thank you to all of you who have subscribed. We are growing, we're growing our community, and you guys are the real rock stars. Thank you for commenting, for emailing, all of that stuff. You guys are awesome. So thanks for your support. Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about inventory. It's still relatively low. So the question here is, why are there so few houses available?
Right.
Yeah. All right, babe. So let's get into it. Why are so few houses still available?
So we want to focus on about 4 or 5 things that's the major contributor to why there is such a shortage or so few houses available.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a whole bunch of people that want to buy a house, and they're competing for the very few amount of houses that are on the market.
Yeah.
So the first thing we want to think about is, like we talked about either last episode or the episode before, we talked about how specifically in the Las Vegas area,
Mm-hmm.
It is still a relatively new city.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we have a bunch of things going on, there is nothing, a whole bunch, and then it slowed down a little bit. So now that things are, Vegas is becoming more of like a normal city with sports teams and things like that. Builders just simply aren't building at the same rate as they were before.
Right.
So when we had the housing market crash in 2009, 2010, builders had overbuilt. They built so many houses without the buyers to buy the properties because they just anticipated things just being great forever.
Yeah.
And so they overbuilt. So, like when we first came here, the first time we came to Las Vegas, we saw frame house, and then they didn't even finish the projects. That's how much they
just
overbuilt.
abandoned projects.
So one of the reasons why is builders kind of learned their lesson, but they also have like real estate market crash PTSD. That like, I'm not going to build to the extent that I built before.
Yeah.
So it's like that's why they release lots. They say, okay, that went well. Then they release more lots. Okay, that went well. So they still are very cautious.
Kind of a building on demand.
Yeah, to not overbuild. So they aren't building at the same rate. Not just Vegas, all over.
Mm-hmm.
Builders just simply aren't building at the same rate as they were doing before because they kind of learned their lesson from 2009, 2010.
Right.
The other part on the building piece is, if you really pay attention to what's going on as far as like available land,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the available land, especially in other cities that's what we call landlocked, the land that's available is commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it's commercial, you can't put a bunch of single family houses on there. But what can you put on there?
Apartment complexes, yeah.
So builders are actually, you look at development, a lot of the development that's going on is big apartment complexes instead of all these 20 houses or these 50 houses being subdivided into lots. So a lot of developers and investors and people who are investing their money into large multifamily apartment complexes versus single family houses that would help create the supply of available houses.
Right. So I think that's really interesting too, because when you are, just going back to looking at builders, and those of you who want to or are considering building instead of buying a pre-existing home, what you guys are probably running into are wait lists. So on the consumer side, you might experience a wait list where your name is put on a list, and it could be between 75 to 150 names on that list. And as lots are released, they go down that list and see who's ready to move forward. And sometimes that wait list takes a little bit longer. So just to let you know, on that side, that's kind of what you'll be experiencing on the consumer side. Okay, so why are so few homes still available? Homeowners who might be considering moving or staying put because they're afraid they won't be able to find anything else to buy in this current market. So I know that I've spoken with many of you and some of you who are watching right now, and that's a real concern that you guys have. The good news is that there are things that you can put in place in your offer should you want to move, or maybe downsize, or maybe even upsize. But there are things that you can put in your offer of your new home, contingent upon the sale of your other home. And while there are still few homes that are available, I will say this, because y'all know I brought notes. So April's numbers came out. 3,001 units sold as far as single family homes. So it's not like they're not moving. They are definitely moving. We've been having closings. We've been selling homes because that's what we do. But I will say you have to be creative in this market. So you need to have a real estate agent that knows what they're doing, knows how to negotiate, that's well connected, and knows how to get an offer accepted. But they are out there as far as condos and townhomes, which is always less than single family homes, so it's okay. But 776 units sold last month. So both condos, townhomes, and single family homes are moving. So yes, while that is a legitimate concern, and we do hear you, if you still want to move, especially this summer, reach out to a real estate agent. It's definitely still could be your time to do that.
Yeah, so this market is kind of like the perfect example of it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So you have somebody that already owns a home, and they're like, oh, I bought a house and I got a good price for it in X amount of years.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm gonna stay put because I don't think I'll be able to buy nothing else. Whereas you have like first time home buyers and maybe millennials or newer entrepreneur just jumping into the market.
Ownership. Yeah.
They're still buying a house and even sometimes finding a deal.
Yeah.
But they're being creative. They're having to work, or you're just putting yourself out there and putting not even a risk but a potential risk out there. So a lot of conservatives and people, like what I say, it's hard to teach a new old dog new tricks. Sometimes you just have to be creative. You still can buy a house. You still can find a good deal, an investment in, and things like that. You just have to put yourself out there and kind of be creative. And some people just aren't willing to do that right now.
Yeah. And for those of you homeowners who are thinking that you may want to stay put, let me wet your whistle just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit. Come on, a little bit closer, all right? Okay, so of the homes that have sold, the median sale price for those homes, okay? The median sale price for those homes, single family homes in particular, is $475, guys. That's up almost 27% from last year. So if you bought last year, if you bought the year before, even the year before, you have probably seen major growth in the value of your home. So if you're thinking about staying put, but you're really kind of on the fence, and maybe you, like I said, you want to downsize or you want to upsize, that might be something that you want to consider as far as the value of your home increasing even 26, almost 27% in 1 year.
So corporations are hedge funds. So let's start with hedge funds. For the most part, before the real estate market crashed, hedge funds invested in stocks, bonds, and commodities. So they found a new commodity that was what they deemed as safe, and they could get the same amount of yield or interest as stocks or bonds through real estate.
Right.
So they found out, we could buy a portfolio of properties and get a higher rate of return than we can by investing our money in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to buy in bulk in order for it to be a solution. So instead of investing my money in this, I'm going to invest my money in this. So if one property won't do it for a hedge fund that has millions and billions of dollars. So they buy huge portfolios all over the country, or all over the world, actually. And so before the real estate market crashed and they looked at real estate as a viable commodity, they weren't buying bulk real estate. So those hedge funds, which is, one of the corporations, they bought a bunch of properties, and it's just like, Warren Buffett or anybody else. You have certain stocks that you move around, some of them you just buy and hold.
Right.
And so those corporations, they bought the properties, held them, and they never put them back on the market, which creates a shortage of available properties for the average, buyer to choose from and to buy. So you have hedge funds, you have iBuyers or internet buyers. So you have like your OfferPad and your Zillow and people like that. Those are corporations that say, I'll buy your house sight unseen for X amount of dollars. And it makes sense because it's a numbers game. They buy a whole bunch of properties. Some are lower, some are higher, but it all averages out to a profit. And then you have newer companies like your American Homes for Rent, which they're a publicly traded company, and their whole business is to buy properties and hold them and never sell them. And they just keep saying, okay, we're going up 3%, we're going up 5%, whatever the market can hold. They're all about getting that interest, and they have funds invested from other people, and their thing is to buy properties and hold them, not to. They don't make money off of selling them. So,
and they've even gotten into building now. Building just to rent.
Just to rent out.
It's like an apartment, but it's a single family home. So, but for some people that is, that's what they need at the time. Some people prefer to rent, but just so you know that there is a sliver of the market that looks like that. So
and so I even had a recommendation. I talked to somebody else about this. I think that they should put a rule in place, just like they do with like a bank-owned property, or if you put an offer on a HUD property. Like if you put an offer on a HUD property, it has to be an owner-occupied person for the first 14 days or 21 days or 1 week. They keep bumping the time period up, but for a period of time, it's only open to an owner-occupied person. And I think that we should probably put some type of thing like that into place, because corporations are a major competitor, if not a problem, to the average buyer looking to buy their first home, or somebody looking to relocate to another city. It's hard to compete with somebody that basically has a blank checkbook to, they overpay for houses because it's all a numbers game for them. So I think we do at some point have to really regulate the amount of properties that these corporations can buy, because it's just taking a lot of people out of the game and making it extremely,
it's moving the goal line.
So it's making it extremely difficult and way more lopsided on the end of competing with an investor or a corporation. I agree. I definitely agree. Something's gonna have to happen. Well, another reason why there are so few homes available right now is that people generally follow the crowd. So right now, as you know, interest rates are still relatively low, but we know that they are increasing. Just a couple weeks ago, the interest rate increased again, so about 5.5% for the interest rate. But inflation is pretty high. I know y'all been filling it up with gas, filling your cars up with gas. And I know we see it in the stores and at the gas stations and everything like that. For the most part, everything is up. So market crashes and major changes are largely motivated by fear. So fear of not being able to sell, or not being able to sell at the right price, or like I mentioned before, even being able to buy something else that they want. It keeps people staying put.
for homeowners that, again, might be on the fence, those types of things, inflation, an increase in interest rates, all of these types of fears, it makes people say, I think I'll hold it for a little bit longer. And so that's just another reason why there's, less inventory out there right now.
Yeah, so for the most part, major changes are inspired by fear, and you can take it to the pandemic. Remember we had the toilet paper crisis?
Oh,
everybody got so scared and they went out there. Oh my gosh, we won't be able to have toilet paper, and they went out and bought all the toilet paper. That was based upon fear,
right?
And then even recently, when you take over like the situation with Elon Musk buying Twitter, a lot of people dumped Tesla stocks in fear that he would focus too much time on Twitter, so they did that on Tesla stock, thinking, it may go down. Actuality, people should have the opposite amount of fear. I right now would be a little more on the side of fearful that I should go ahead and sell this property now when prices are extremely high, instead of waiting until everything dropped out and hurrying up trying to sell before it got too bad. So I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. Not saying that like prices are as high as they're going to be right now, but they're high right now. Go off of what you know. You don't know like how long it's going to be. So a lot of people wait until it's too late. So a lot of times big changes are motivated by fear. So you should get that from the gas prices to stocks to toilet paper to the real estate market. A lot of big changes are motivated by fear, and so that people aren't scared enough right now. That's a big thing.
You are last but not least.
Why you be doing super hard? Like,
I mean, you should have just went right into it. Like, you act like I'm the only person that can move this conversation.
All right. So
you're the last but not least. I just read that. You said we were going to alternate. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
You just like blank stare.
Well, I mean, it's like, because you're supposed to just pick up and move. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
All right. And last but not least, this is probably one of the biggest factors right now, is we're not in a super duper coronavirus still exists, but it's really low right now.
Yeah,
so
we're not in a pandemic.
Panic, people scared, people
anymore.
Back outside. But people still have a lot of options right now as far as their mortgage is concerned.
Yeah.
So people aren't scared that, if I don't pay my mortgage in 3 months, I'm going to get foreclosed on.
Right.
So they still have modifications, forbearance, workout programs and things like that available to people. Whereas, back when the real estate market, was collapsing, or a normal market, you go 3 months, you get a notice of default.
Absolutely.
If you don't pay then, you get a notice of sale, then you get foreclosed on.
It's over.
So now banks are willing to work with a lot of people because coronavirus happened.
Yep.
And also, they don't want to have to put that property on the market and go through the whole foreclosure process. They would rather, let's extend you out from 30 years to 40 years. They're even doing things like that because big banks and corporations, all they're looking at is interest. If they can keep their money if they keep their money put up somewhere, and they can still collect interest, even if it's delayed, even if it's spread out, as long as they're still getting it at the end of the day. That's what a lot of these big corporations care about.
Right.
Is how much interest am I getting, and how can I secure that interest on there? So all these workouts, modifications are still available to a lot of homeowners right now. So we said this before, and we'll say it again. If you get foreclosed on right now, it's pretty much your own fault. You know what I mean? There's no way you should probably get foreclosed. In between banks being able to work with you and 90-something% of somebody right now on the market has equity in their house.
You're not upside down.
So you should be able to sell it. Even make you a little money to start over, relocate, get back on your feet.
If you need to dump it, you shouldn't be upside down.
Yeah, now is a great time. So when we talked about the fear, people don't have the fear of the consequences of not paying their mortgage right now.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, "Oh, let me hurry up and sell so I don't get foreclosed on." That panic is not there.
Nope.
And so that creates a supply demand issue. There's a lot more buyers than sellers because people don't have. A lot of people who own houses aren't afraid that they may lose it or not be able to sell at a certain price right now. So you take all of those factors, and that's what creates the current real estate market that we have right now.
Yeah.
But we do have changes. We have a potential, how long is this war thing going to go on with Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, a lot of factors.
Yeah, we have interest rates going up.
Yeah,
so,
inflation is a big deal.
Yeah.
Inflation more so is also affecting the rental market. So if you are renting right now, it's probably pretty expensive. That's why we want you to, if you are renting right now and you're looking to move, it's good to consider possibly buying because it may be significantly less as far as your mortgage versus what you're paying in rent. So definitely consider that. Again, like we said, interest rates, they are climbing, and that does change the purchase power that you have as far as, what you can afford, what you could afford earlier this year. You can't quite afford that now, but if you are still able to buy, go ahead and do that. All these things, again, all these factors make it so that that's what the market is looking like. But if you need help and you are moving out to Las Vegas, or you're already in this area and you're looking to move, we would love to help you. Go ahead and put it in the comments below. You can also email us, or you can go to thewillisteamlv.com and we'd be happy to help. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.